joining me. My name is Nicole Eastman, and I was placed at the Trinity County Resource Conservation District this year, and I'll be talking about watershed planning in the Upper Trinity River watershed. So the area I was serving was in Trinity County, which has a population of about 12,500 people. And it's a pretty rural area with no incorporated cities, but the county seat is Weaverville. And there's a population of about 3,300 people here. And that's where the RCD is located, as well as where I lived this year. And Weaverville was established during the gold rush in 1850, but we were located on Norwelmuck, Wintu, and Hoopa Valley tribes land. So the RCD has several different departments that are really involved in the community, including forest health, revegetation, education and outreach, roads, GIS, and watershed management, where I was placed for the year. And like I said, we are very involved in the community, and they have a significant role in the community. We attend different public events, as well as hold our own several education related and volunteer opportunities in the community, as well as provide assistance to landowners and community members, especially for wildfire protection. So the Trinity County, or the Trinity Headwaters watershed, that's where I did the majority of my research and field work. It's a very beautiful area with 70% of it being managed by US Forest Service and 32% being designated wilderness area. So it is a very natural and beautiful area, but we also see a lot of legacy impacts, such as gold mining impacts, road construction, and decades of fire suppression, which has caused dense forest stands in the area. So this historic land use of gold mining eventually turned into more timber production, and that remains a big part of Trinity County economy now. There are several small unincorporated communities up in the Trinity Headwaters watershed in the most northern part of the county. And this area is very significant to the Central Valley Project, which funnels water from several rivers in Northern California to the Sacramento River. And then it's distributed throughout the greater Central Valley area. And so it supports agricultural lands and residential areas. So it's important in providing water across the state. And so the Trinity River is one of those rivers that contributes to the success of this project. And that's where my main project comes in. I was assigned as the Watershed Fellow to assist with the Upper Trinity Watershed Plan. And the main goal of the plan is to support the Central Valley, but also assist the community in becoming more resilient to drought and improving water security for the area in the Upper Trinity River watershed. So some of our main objectives include decreasing high severity fire risk, increasing different wetted areas near the streams, and improving water storage as a whole. So I started the position with completing some background research and then transitioned to more field assessments in hopes of assisting in identifying sites for future restoration projects in the area to accomplish these goals. So some of my more specific projects under this overarching watershed plan included completing a literature review. So I evaluated previous analyses and looked at what kind of actions they recommend for restoration in the Upper Trinity watershed, as well as looking at historical information, looking at what kind of usage, what kind of historical land use was found in previous decades. And also I looked into several different restoration projects that are being implemented in different areas to provide some examples of what could be effective in achieving our goals here in Trinity County. And in addition to the literature review, I created a couple different maps through GIS to assist the project. And then I did a lot more field work in the spring, including rapid stream assessments, which provide an overall watershed condition rating of a particular stream based on several different parameters, such as the stream's connectivity to its floodplain. And this is really important because as we receive higher flows or flooding, this allows the water to spread out across the landscape. And so when flows decrease, this water can re-enter the stream and support the flows longer into a dry season. Other parameters include the presence of riparian vegetation. So that's the vegetation growing along the stream. And we look at the potential for stream bank erosion and how that might contribute to sediment supply, which also decreases the stream's storage capacity for water. And another parameter we looked at was the abundance of macroinvertebrates. And these little critters help us identify what the current status of the water quality is. So these assessments help indicate which sites could most benefit from restoration actions and what kind of restoration actions. And at these sites, we are also supporting ongoing research by completing flow monitoring and temperature monitoring. So we're adding to this data set that has recorded flow and temperature data through several different years, and we want to assess it from late spring into early fall to look at how these water levels are changing during the summer. And finally, I helped coordinate a community meeting because a big part of the plan was hearing about the community's concerns and incorporating that into the development of this plan, and hearing about what kind of actions they would like to see prioritized in their watershed. So aside from this large project that I was working on throughout the year, right now I'm assisting with the Weaverville Summer Day Camp, and that was the first 3 weeks of July. So we're finishing up this week, and our goal is to provide an interactive experience for kids ages 6 to 12 to give them the opportunity to learn about different topics from speakers that come in and talk about nutrition, wildfire, and many different topics. And then we also give them the opportunity to play outside, play games, make crafts. So it's been a really fun experience ending my term with some outdoor education. Other projects that I had the ability to jump on with because I was fortunate to have some flexibility in my schedule. So I was able to assist with salmon surveys, one being on kayak, as you can see in this first picture, and then one on foot. And so we were able to go and walk through the streams and create counts of the amount of salmon we saw, as well as their reds, which are, you can see these depressions in the stream and then resulting mounds from where the female salmon move the rocks, create mounds, and then deposit their eggs in layers in these mounds of stream cobble. And also, I provided support to the education and outreach department throughout the year. So I helped with certain events like Science on Tap, where we held science professionals from the area at the brewery, and they're able to share some information relevant to our county. And I also assisted with the Trinity River cleanup and different volunteer events. And then I also helped with article writing. So we looked at restoration sites in the area and current efforts to assess fish populations, and I created these articles to share with the public so they're aware of the ongoing initiatives in the area. So some barriers and challenges that I came across during this service term. Moving from the East Coast, which has a completely different set of natural resource concerns, I had a lot of work ahead of me to learn about the natural area here and the community here. and their concerns in Trinity County, such as drought and severe fire risk. So I did face this initial learning curve, which motivated me to immerse myself in the community and learn from people at work, as well as people that I meet outside of work here in Trinity County. Also, I learned to be a bit more flexible due to weather constraints for field work. Stream-based field work is very dependent on the current water conditions. So with higher flows during the rainy season in the winter, as well as the snowpack begins to melt in the spring, we see higher flows, and the window for field work was a bit smaller than I expected when the water conditions were right to be wading through these streams. But I learned how to be a bit more adaptable and change schedules as we go. Also, working at an RCD, I witnessed the funding challenges for RCDs, which wasn't unique, obviously, to ours. RCDs function as not-for-profits, so they're responsible for finding and applying for their own grants. So I was able to learn about that process a bit and how staff works really hard to fund the projects that they're passionate about and learn about the grant process a bit. So some of the positive outcomes coming from this service term, I had a lot of professional development, especially in terms of field work related to stream assessment protocols. I was trained in a couple different protocols, and then I was also able to practice my GIS skills that I started to obtain during undergrad. And then with different community meetings and presentations, I was able to practice presentational speaking skills. And also, one of my favorite parts of the experience was learning about many different watershed restoration actions and how they're implemented, as well as how they're planned prior. I haven't been on the planning side of restoration and watershed management, so it was really a unique experience for me. And then finally, ending with summer day camp, I've been able to learn about what kind of outdoor education techniques are effective in engaging kids outside safely. So my personal outcomes. I felt really fortunate to be placed in Trinity County because it is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been and ever lived in, especially. So exploring the natural area and learning hands-on by being out there in the Alps, in the wilderness area, and in the forest, as well as learning from a community that was extremely welcoming. I really had a positive experience getting to know this region and the people that live here. Also, in addition to the Trinity County community, I'm super grateful for the built-in community that we had within GrizzlyCorps. Having fellows across the state, it was super fun to visit each other, host people from different locations, and sharing our experiences, our challenges, our accomplishments. So yeah, I'm really happy that I got to meet all of these people, and I hope to keep these connections going in the future. And then finally, this also relates to my professional outcomes, but I believe expanding my understanding of water resources management by learning about the major water concerns in the western part of the country in comparison to in the east, where I had a lot of my initial experience. I believe it was super important for me to understand the geographical differences of watershed management, and this really helps me kind of find a solid direction on my career path. So thank you for attending my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself.